Funeral practices are an intrinsic part of human culture. From ancient Egyptians to indigenous tribes and contemporary societies, funeral rituals reflect the beliefs, values, and traditions of different cultures.
These ancient practices really speak to our common humanity, and I think that's one of the reasons they're so important. And I find this quite interesting because people in grief today are no different than people in grief 1,000 years ago. So if you grieve, you begin the process of healing and finding meaning. So the poet Thomas Lynch, he put it this way: by getting the dead where they need to go, the living get where they need to be. So when we think about death, we typically focus on how it reunites a family, how it brings a family together, how it reconnects a family. And certainly the funeral and cemetery profession help facilitate that process. But what is often missed is how the funeral and cemetery profession also play a broader civic role, a broader civic purpose, and that is to strengthen community bonds in the wake of death and loss.
Archaeological excavations have found human graves dating back 130,000 years, marking ritualized permanent placement of deceased bodies among one of the earliest human activities.
Permanent placement of our dead is important because I truly believe that principles don't change, just technique and application. And there's so many people that are cremated that tend to go home or tend to be spread. People don't remember where they spread them. But if they're placed into a cemetery, it's secure and it's forever. It also puts a nice place for where people can go and remember and think about that person. So it is generational.
There are several reasons why we're seeing some big changes in attitudes towards funeral rituals. One is that we're much less familiar with death and mortality than we used to be. In a lot of ways, it's a really happy story that our mortality has dropped, but more recently we focus much more on how we can bring people together to support the grieving and ways that we can make it personalized and meaningful for them as well.
To keep up with changing needs, cemeteries are now innovating new technologies, just as every industry has adopted innovation to evolve with society.
When COVID hit in 2020, forced the profession to look differently at how we provide services to families. So they were live streaming funeral services so that families at home could be a part of the service. Well, now that's just a norm. For cemeteries, some of them are doing 24/7 streaming of their cemetery locations so families can do virtual visitation. And then once you get there, on headstones, we are now using QR codes. And so you don't just have a headstone, you actually have a digital memorial. And then they're actually using VR and using artificial intelligence to curate photos and videos, allowing individuals to step into this world of someone's life. So any new technology that the cemeteries are being able to offer are all about trying to meet families where they are in their healing process and what they need to honor a life.
Cemeteries hold a unique potential to be more than a final resting place. They can become meaningful spaces for personal reflection and remembrance.
As cremation continues to grow, and now it's over 50% of people are cremated, cemeteries have to respond in order to respond to their communities. So many cemeteries are putting a cemetery within a cemetery for cremated remains to be buried or put in a columbarium. There's a lot of options. When you're dealing with a smaller type urn, you can do a lot of different options for cemeteries. And so there's a lot of creativity there.
Cemeteries are sacred spaces that take our grief seriously. In a world that seems to kind of forget our loved one pretty soon after they've died, but we feel we're still in the middle of our grief process, it's nice to have a place where we can go that is serene, an opportunity to really focus on ourselves and remembering our loved one. It gives us an opportunity to talk out loud to them and share things with them.
Cemeteries are now becoming vibrant community hubs that foster connection, healing, and creativity.
To open up our cemeteries to outreach, really what we're saying is let's learn to coexist. Let's be a part of our history so that we're anchored to something, but then we also have a way to move forward, but something to constantly come back to. Coming back to our roots, coming back to the person that we've lost, coming back to a feeling of togetherness, not in isolation. It's a part of a bigger history. It's a part of building that community, and they're just beautiful spaces. So we want to bring those into our community rather than separate them.
After we lose a loved one, so often much of the grief is a very internal process, and it's easy to feel really stuck. So one thing that can be really helpful is to find some place to actually do something, to be active in our grief. So the healing path is a series of grief stations that allows you to be active in your grief. So often as we're going through the grief process, we feel like we're kind of stuck in our heads, and this gives you an opportunity to be physically active and practice specific personalized rituals.
While traditional burial remains a core offering, cremation also provides many meaningful options for memorialization.
Funeral service is about listening to people, to learning about their story, to hearing different ways that we can honor and memorialize and maintain the relationship with the person that we've lost.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. So given the rising cremation rates in the United States and Canada, modern cemeteries today are doing a lot more creative usage of their spaces. And so they are creating a number of options that are diverse that would appeal to different people. The main idea is that of meaning. So a cemetery professional, for example, would educate a community member or a family about the different options for a cremation that's available at their cemetery. And then, of course, respect their choices that are made. That is, what is meaningful to them, what resonates to them as something meaningful and important.